Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Happy Sunday to one and to all. Perhaps it is Monday, depending upon where you are on the globe. Please give yourselves a round of applause for making it to and through another day, because as we know, that is not the case for many of us. So, prayerfully, everyone is enjoying this day. It rained here for a bit, and now the skies are out, and it appears to be some sun trying to peek its way through. However, it is extremely humid, so please make sure that you are hydrated properly and just be mindful while you are out here on these streets. Today's broadcast, and I haven't been live in a while, but I thought this was very, very significant because I am in this area and I am unsure of how many people are aware of this story. The link is there, and this is something that I don't do often, but again, because of the importance and severity, in my opinion, of this particular situation, it is there if anyone wants to comment on it or if they have any thoughts. I'm going to put a disclaimer out there that the thoughts and opinions are that of July's TV. That's how most people know me as, but my name is Lise. What you see up there is they're my opinions. Again, I live in this area and I see a lot that some people may not, other than what they hear on the news. So, without further delay, last Thursday, July the 10th, around 9:20 to 9:25 a.m., the BPD, also known as the Baltimore Police Department, responded to an area off of Pennsylvania Avenue and North, basically called Penn North in Baltimore, Maryland, not too far from Druid Hill. And for some of you old heads out there, if you remember the singing group, I do not believe they're together any longer, but Drew Hill is where that name came from. So keep that in mind. Hey there, my beautiful mind. How are you? Blessings to you. And thank you so much. Thank you. You have a wonderful Sunday or Monday. I forget. It might be late for you. But thank you so much for being supportive. I truly appreciate you and everyone else. So, as I mentioned, Baltimore Police Department, health officials, fire and rescue, and other public officials responded to that area of North and Penn for what people have deemed, well, you enjoy yourself at school and get all of that education. Education is key. Knowledge is key. Responded to that location for what has been labeled a mass overdose. And I'm going to put up a few photos because this is just heartbreaking and it's scary. So here's the first one. And you can see there are people around trying to help an individual in distress. And we have another. And of course, their identity and face is blurred out for obvious reasons, but they're being whisked away. Now, according to reports, and I always implore you to do and conduct your own thorough, meticulous, independent research because details change quickly. Some things may be left out or retracted because, again, as humans, we make mistakes in reporting and how news is distributed, how quickly it's updated. So, at the time when this first was reported, there were 27 people, at least 27 people affected by this, and 5 critical. However, it was reported that there were no fatalities, which is a good thing. Thank God for that. But what is concerning to me, hey there, Shabs, how are you? Blessings to you, and happy Sunday, happy weekend. You as well. You have a nice day, evening, and beginning of the week. 5 were critical, but as I mentioned, according to reports, no fatalities, which is a very good thing. But what's concerning to many, and eyebrows are being raised already, is how, how, how is it possible within a short time span that 27 people suffered what again is being called an overdose? Now, some, and I am not a conspiracy theorist, let me put that out as well. There are some that are saying it was just a bad batch and there was probably some fent. Those of you that know, you know, involved. However, there's something else that's been floating around for a while now. Nitazene, which is said to be extremely potent or perhaps more potent. Again, nitazene. So I would suggest that you do your research on that. It's also called ISO. Again, nitazene, also known as ISO. So again, there are many people that have said that this is a result of perhaps a bad batch. Officials have stated that many of these streets have been cordoned off because they are still looking for possible victims in a lot of these abandoned buildings. And those of you that are familiar with Baltimore, Maryland, and they'll give you a very good reference point because they say art is merely an imitation of life. There was a series several years ago called The Wire. I kid you not, I am not embellishing. This looks almost like a scene from The Wire. They're looking for people in alleyways and abandoned buildings. And as I mentioned, those of you familiar with Baltimore, I'm not talking about the ritzy part of Baltimore. When you first come in and you see M&T Stadium over to your right, or it depends on how you enter Baltimore, or the areas of Federal Hill, or further down off of Camden Street, where you see the ritzy hotels and pubs and things like that. I am speaking about West Baltimore. This is where this incident occurred, and many of the people affected, ironically, it occurred adjacent to a recovery center. That's right, I did not stumble over my words. Directly across from a recovery center. One of the people that is involved stated, and when I say involved, she works at the recovery center. She says that she sees this every day, but not on this magnitude. I'm glad she said that because that really would be an awful thing for something like this to be daily. ODs, I understand that, but we're talking about 27 people. I can't imagine the first responders and residents and those passers-by what they endured trying to save people, and the images, the imagery that will be left in their minds. Now, some of the news stations that have reported on this, and I'm not home so I can't share some of the comments, but many of them were extremely ugly. There were many people that say the problem is resolving itself. I'm pretty sure most of you can figure that out, but for those who may not quite understand what some of these people meant behind their comments, if someone had lost their life as a result of an OD, then that was the purpose. Next, there are some people that believe this wasn't an accident. And if I have to be honest and transparent, I have to agree with the latter. Again, I pay attention to timing, funding, and just the area. This is the area that is prime for gentrification. Poverty level is heartbreaking, as well as the lack of education, the lack of care. Hey there, Hood TMZ, how are you? Blessings to you. Can you believe this story? 27 ODs in Baltimore. No one at this point in time has passed away, but 27 in one day, and they are expecting that there may be others. So, what they have done, and again, my heart goes out to those that are fighting any type of addiction. That is something that, after reading some stories, I cannot make fun of. I will not make fun of, because if you looked at the story last night with Olympic gymnast, gold medal winner, Mary Lou Retton, who does not look like me, she found herself in a very serious situation. So it doesn't matter your zip code. It doesn't matter your social economic status, even though a year or so ago, her daughters were seeking help from her fans to help cover medical bills, but when she was caught May the 17th, 2025, um, they said that she was, and you could see from the clips that I showed, she was driving a Porsche, and she was just in her hometown wanting to get her nails done. She had oxygen on, so she was going through a medical situation. I'm saying all that to say you don't know what happens in a person's life that may cause them to find comfort in a bottle of liquid or a bottle of pills. And unfortunately, drugs, and I'm speaking about street pharmaceuticals, is on the rise. They have been, and Hood TMZ said crazy. Absolutely, but it's a little bit more crazier, Hood. They're saying that, again, it may have changed, but at the last time I looked, they have no idea of what this quote unquote street pharmaceutical was. Now, I, and this is just me, with all of this technology, all of these biotech companies that are popping up here and there, that nobody has an inkling, nobody has a modicum of could possibly, what could possibly be the culprit behind this mass OD. So they're looking for people with any information to call law enforcement. Another thing that I noticed, again, unless I missed something, I didn't see any type of reward money offered. Baltimore, like DC, they have certain areas, cameras everywhere. Maybe not in some of the alleys. Some buildings, yes, they do. I know that for sure because I've walked through alleys and I've seen them. Now, whether they are operable, that's another thing. But I do know that they do exist. But what they have proposed, and let me put this up. And again, I'm not too familiar with all of these things and how they work, and I don't want to offend anyone. But the suggestion is a list, just a very short list. Never use alone. What? Again, I don't understand this type of addiction, so I don't want to be disrespectful nor inconsiderate because I don't understand. But these are some of the suggestions. Never use alone. Carry Narcan, and Narcan is said to reverse. Oh my God, this person's going down the wrong way. The effects of possible opioid overdose. In pharmacies, I believe they're about $130 for 2 doses. I'm not really sure. It could change. And test your drugs. I repeat, and you can see it on the screen. You may have to zoom in, but test your drugs and to go slow. Again, I do not mean to sound inconsiderate, or I do not want this to be construed as I do not have sympathy for anyone because that is not true at all. It's just something that I don't understand. But I would think, and again, if someone can help me understand something different, please let me know. But I would think the goal Perhaps in conjunction with these suggestions, it is to get help for the addictions. Let me grab this comment really quick. Hey there, Uda. I'm doing good. Did you hear about this crazy story that's happening in Baltimore? 27 OD. Thankfully, no one passed away. However, like I said earlier, this is a scene taken from The Wire. And Shab says, what going to the whole world nowadays? We must keep praying and we don't lose hope. I agree, Shab. We have to, for those that believe in prayer, pray. Same thing as hope. However, as you mentioned, there's a lot going on in the world these days, and money is the root, or the love of root. Love of money is the root of a lot of these things. So the link is there if anyone wants to come up, add their 2 cents, what they think. If they think maybe I really don't know about these type of addictions, because I don't. Certain addictions I do know, but others I just don't. And that's being honest. The next thing that has been put out is the Good Samaritan Law is in effect. And this is for Baltimore, Maryland, which means, and this is what they say, keep in mind that just because someone says something doesn't mean that they'll turn around and change it at another time. The Good Samaritan Law states that you can seek treatment without the fear of arrest. And I'm going to stop that right there. Last week, I was in the courthouse, in the main courtroom, on one of the longest days, in reference to the Kilmar Garcia case. This is the case where the Maryland resident, not citizen, I want to make that clear, the Maryland resident who was deported back to El Salvador to CCOT. And there has been a massive fight because in 2019 there was a law, a document on place for him not to be sent back to El Salvador. However, the administration has poo-pooed that, and there has been a fight. So Judge Paula Zenas, who heard arguments, will make a decision next week as to if Kilmar Garcia will be transported back here, which is in Maryland, before his trial, or if he's going to be deported to a third country. And that has caused a lot of protest here in Maryland. And I had the opportunity to speak to a state delegate and one of the lawyers for Kilmar Garcia, who said that this absolutely is going to set a precedent for immigration as we move forward. So back to what I was saying, there were a lot of things said in immigration cases, but all of that has changed. So when it comes to this Baltimore incident, where it says the Good Samaritan Law that's in effect, you can seek treatment without fear of arrest. Now, unless I miss something again, and I believe for all intents and purposes, I'm pretty much on top of a lot of things. I thought those type of street pharmaceuticals were illegal. I mean, if we're going to talk about aliens, and that is the term that was used in the court, and being legal, that this is illegal as well. And we could have been looking at 27 people who would no longer be here if medical assistance was not rendered in time. Narcan and test strips. And if you view some of the videos, you will see the boxes and boxes of them were being distributed to those on the street. And again, as I mentioned, there are people, first responders, and others going to and through abandoned buildings looking for others who are in distress to distribute the Narcan and test strips. And when I say test strips, I'm speaking about test strips for Fent. And you pretty much understand what Fent is. I hope that you do. So here's the part that really concerns me. In 2017, there was an article that came out from Johns Hopkins that stated that again, if there was a safe place, a safe site, if you will, that would save Baltimore $6 million a year. Again, $6 million a year for a facility for those who are addicted to go in, utilize their street pharmaceuticals supervised. And the ideology behind that is to reduce infection, Hep C, and the three-letter word HIV and AIDS. Also, to eliminate some of the, I'll just say, paraphernalia that others may come in contact with. Now, that was illegal. When I say that, I'm speaking of these facilities were illegal in the United States up until 2021, according to reports. New York City, supposedly, again, I implore you to do your research, but according to reports, New York City has a small, I'll just say, facility for these purposes. $6 million. Mayor Brandon Scott. Let's talk about him for a little while. 41 years old, and there are a lot of negative statements about him. There has been a lot of money, and I want to make this clear. I am not discrediting any of the work done by certain individuals for the betterment of their communities and their constituents. But when you are funneling, and yes, I did say that and I didn't stutter, millions upon millions for particular programs, and it always seems to me to be youth violence interrupter programs like the big one in Washington, D.C., and I have no idea in hell why Muriel Bowser is still the mayor there and why no one has probed her spending habits. But that's another thing. And youth programs. Not more than 8 hours ago was there a short video, again, do your research, where Mayor Scott put up, and I can't quote it offhand because I don't have it in front of me, but it was something as it relates to um, safety summer or summer of safety for the youth. How in the hell or why in the hell would you disguise that everything is okay in Baltimore and it's safe when just Thursday, you could have been facing 27 unalive residents for a substance that, according to officials, has yet to be identified, nor has the source of this unidentified substance been revealed or perhaps apprehended. That is something that I don't quite understand. Those of you that live in these big cities, urban cities, let's be transparent here. And when you see millions, I'm not speaking thousands, I'm speaking millions of dollars are being funneled into particular programs, normally youth violence interrupter programs or youth programs. Trust and believe there's something more behind it, especially when they're non-profit. Now, I know some of you are saying, Joe, can you land your plane? I'll land it when I get good and darn ready to. $2.2 million of taxpayer money in Baltimore, Maryland was sent to a contractor for a website for Baltimore. Not $2,000, not $3,000, not four, five, six, seven, $8,000. $2.2 million on that website, still not operable. Why? Where's the money going? You spend that much money on a website, I'm sure an intern perhaps from Oregon State, Towson, University of Maryland, Baltimore campus, could have created a website that would not have cost $2.2 million. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Next, there's a problem here, and this problem exists in DC too. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the CEO of the Baltimore Children and Youth Fund. Take a good look. I'll leave it up there, and the salary. Now, I believe most definitely that there should be programs for the youth. Well, we're getting older, most of us. I know I am. 3 years from 60, God willing. So the youth needs these programs, guidance. So again, look clearly. She's all happy and smiling. I'd be smiling too if I knew my quote unquote program is receiving an exorbitant amount of funds or donations, 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 gifts, gifts. But the problem is, every time that I have been in Baltimore, the youth that I've seen are still in poverty, hanging out on the streets, vulgar language, and will approach your vehicle with their spray bottles and what we hope is window cleaner when you stop at certain street lights. I don't see how it is possible that millions and millions and millions of dollars are received by these nonprofits, yet we still have these problems. And let's not talk about the crime rate as it relates to our young people. Next, why does the mayor's office, and this is to your left, it may be to your right, depending upon your optics. This is the mayor of Baltimore, Brandon Wright. Why does the mayor's office need money from BCYF for the Summer Funding Collaborative Program? Now that's interesting. I want you again to peek and peer at these two individuals. To your left is the mayor, and to your right is Alicia, who's the CEO of the nonprofit. But these two individuals are on the board. I thought Again, unless I have missed something completely, and I do many times, I would think that would be a major conflict of interest. I have seen numbers of 16 million, then transfer of 7 million, and then 2 million. What is being done with all of this money? What's being done? This reminds me of back in the day where parents, well, some parents were up in arms when they had a debate of whether to install or provide prophylactics and BC for young girls. Some would say it was to protect from unwanted unwanted events that occur when you engage in a physical act between a man and a woman. On the other side of the fence, there were people that felt this was encouraging such behavior. So I'm going to switch that to this issue in Baltimore as far as distributing the Narcan and the test strips. Are you really helping those addicted to these horrible, horrible drugs? Or are you encouraging those who are so deeply addicted and they saw how this bad batch, as it's been labeled, apparently so powerful that people were just dropping. And from stories I've heard people share and research, there are some that seek another high that was higher than the first one. Is there is there a boogeyman or boogeymen on the streets of Baltimore for a specific reason, for a specific population? Or is this, as some people know, and I'm not in this population, or was it just a bad batch? Was this a test run? And again, I have an intelligent crowd. Was this a test run to see how quickly a response will be, or how quickly, or how many could be affected within a certain time frame? Ladies and gentlemen, don't be fooled. Do not be fooled. There have been distractions upon distractions upon distractions. If you care to pay attention, and as I said, Washington, D.C. Mayor Bowser, and the embattled Ward 8, Trayvon Martin. And I think I said his first name wrong. Trayvon Martin. Open baby is this weekend. He was expelled earlier this year after being caught last year, allegedly, by taking bribes. And what's the common denominator of this? Contracts. Contracts for what? Youth violence interrupter programs. Trayon White, I believe, is 40 or 41 years old. His trial is set to begin 2026, January, as a matter of fact. But again, he's running for Ward 8 council member, which he held up until he was expelled earlier this year by his peers. Now, Trayon White is beloved by many in Ward 8 in Washington, D.C. And it would not surprise me whatsoever if he is reelected back to his seat. The question is, will the D.C. Council seek to expel him again, or have they backed away, waiting for what may happen in his 2026 trial, again, for federal bribery charges? I want you to look at these images again, ladies and gentlemen, because just because this has happened in Baltimore, don't you think for 1 minute it couldn't happen in your city. These are the results of the mass OD that occurred in Baltimore, North Penn, Thursday, July the 10th, 2025. Some are saying this was a bad batch. A bad batch of what? That's another thing. Since, again, the last time I checked, it could be updated now, but the last time I checked, the substance had not been identified, nor how it got onto the streets of Baltimore. Reminds me of the 80s back in Washington, D.C. Those of you that are familiar with the 80s in Washington, D.C., nothing but carnage, night after night after night. And to be quite honest, those rates are still up. You may not see it on mainstream media. Some of the images you see of Washington, D.C. from mainstream media, beautiful images of sprawling grounds and many mansions You don't see the suffering. You don't see people living in tents not too far from the White House, under bridges. And it's just not in Washington. It's in Maryland and many places in Virginia. The only times you may see those images is when there's a quick story being presented. Keep your eyes and ears open because Baltimore is not far. Philly, Jersey, or New York. I'm going to give it a 3-4 hour drive, if that. It's about a 25-minute drive. Certain places in Maryland and West Virginia. 27. And within the 27, 5 critical, but no fatalities. Again, thank God for that. But how is that going to affect those moving forward? And again, this proposal from, as I said, the article I read was dated 2017. Have this safe place to use illegal street pharmaceuticals in the effort to save $6 million a year. Are those going to be even considered in other states? As I said, according to reports, and again, do your research. There's already a facility such as this in New York City. I cannot attest to the validity of that, but that is what I read in a couple of places. Whether it's still operational, I cannot tell you that. But the fact that it's even considered says a lot. Again, I am not here to condemn or pass judgment on anyone with any type of addictions because addictions can come in many forms that is just not related to liquid in a bottle or pills in a bottle. There are many forms of addiction, and we all know this. All of us should know that. Bad batches. Bad batches is what's been labeled as the result of this horrible, frightening incident in Baltimore, Maryland, which could have been one of the worst unaliving, if you want to place that on it, by OD in years. Again, the remedies we're suggesting right now is never use alone. I'm sorry, I still can't wrap my head around that. Carry Narcan. Test your street pharmaceuticals. That's the one that really got me again. My apologies because I am not here to insult anyone. I just don't understand it. But these are some of the suggestions to test them and to go slow. And I'm assuming that means to avoid OD. All of this money again funneled. Can you train and hire more people knowledgeable that may be able to help those break free from these chains of addiction in the inner city? Just because this particular incident happened in an inner city, there are affluent neighborhoods where certain types of street pharmaceuticals are being utilized and sold. You definitely won't see that on mainstream media unless it may be the offspring of a high ranking official, and it may be regurgitated 2 or 3 times and then it'll die down. Has Baltimore, Maryland become the new New Jack City? For those of you that are struggling with addictions and you truly, truly want help, please seek it, not only for yourself, but for your loved ones and to politicians, your constituents believed that you would make a difference in the community. The impoverished communities from 10 years ago remain the same in some areas. However, maybe 2, 3 blocks away, you have flats have been developed, high rises, or studios for almost $3,000 or more. Doesn't seem right. In fact, it is not right. It's so wrong on so many levels. It's imperative for you to show up at these town hall meetings when you see and hear about stories like these, especially if you're not from the area, to avoid something like this happening. Because one thing is for sure, 2 things are for certain. You have an incident like this in one area, it will happen again and another and another and another. Do your part if you care in speaking up and prayerfully putting an end to the lives being destroyed. Thank you for tuning in. Again, this is not meant to bring anyone down, however, to inform you of what is going on in other cities, other states that may find its way to your state. Until next video or live, please, please be safe. Please be safe. Be well. And you know the rest. Be healthier. Bye for now.